You are listening to the Garlic Fries and Baseball Guys podcast. Sam Blumman and Mark Willard this week filling in for Joe Shasky, platooning for Joe Shasky this week. Make sure you're listening, rating, reviewing, subscribing, telling people about it, sharing it, part of the Odyssey Sports Network here at 95.7 The Game. So the deadline coming past, there's 2 months left in the season, Mark, and it seems like the Giants are kind of an interesting spot. So every year, I remember asking Farhan last year, how do you close the gap on the Dodgers? And one of the things he said, they set the standard, and also the playoffs are always the standard and the expectation for the Giants. Now, it's kind of hard, if the playoffs are the expectation, then I feel like then they would have made a move to kind of come through on that expectation. They did not. Is it still, kind of crazy to look at this roster as is right now and think, yes, this is a team that should be in the playoffs. Make a run, but when season ends, they are one of the final 6 teams still playing the National.
I'm going to answer this one real weird. It depends on which part of your brain you want to access. If I look at this and I look at their roster, should we expect the playoffs? Nope. But have we not learned that that's not how Giants baseball under this regime works? So clearly, and I have said this now a number of times, last year was the outlier. We have spent too much time calling the 107 wins the year before fluky. And I'll admit that it was kind of like it was steroided up because of some good breaks, no question. I don't think they were a 107 win team, but I don't think last year's group was an 81 win team. I think that this year you're seeing probably more about like what par level baseball is.
There's the happy medium between the two seasons.
But you can't make sense of it. Like if I look at them right now and go, why are you 59 and 49? You have one of the worst offenses in the league over the last month. You have 2 starting pitchers. You have a really good bullpen. And I've always thought that was kind of like the offensive line of a baseball team. That's the heartbeat of a baseball team. And so that's one answer. But if I want to look at this on paper, should they be a playoff team? No, but I don't look at it on paper anymore because that's not how baseball works. This group has proven that they will squeeze the orange. They will get more out of it than you see on paper. So do I think that this should be a playoff team? Yeah. I mean, they've been in that spot for the majority of the year. And what you're really asking yourself is, A, could they win the West? I'd say probably not, but they could. And if they don't, then who do they need to beat out? You're obviously going to have 3 division winners. Then there's going to be 3 wild card teams. That's going to be either the Brewers or the Reds. And then you're dealing with Philadelphia. You're dealing with the Diamondbacks. You're dealing with maybe the Cubs, maybe the Padres. Marlins. Who do you believe in out of that group? Do you believe they're one of the 3 best? To me, absolutely.
Yeah.
I absolutely think they're one of the 3 best out of that group.
The way I see it going forward, I feel like we kind of have one of 2 possible paths before us. There's the good path where when you look at this, take a quick step back. You look at this schedule here in August. It is the Giants basically have an asteroid field that they need to navigate through. And, you got after the A's, you got, the Angels, you got and the Rangers coming to town. Then you got to host the Rays, go to Atlanta in the middle of August. It's going to be hot and humid there. Philly after that, that'll be a tough series. Come home to host the Braves, and then the Reds come to town. And yeah, like I said, this is an asteroid field that the Giants have to navigate through, and they got about a 3,701 chance of navigating it through it. Shout out to Solo William Falcon. But if they do somehow navigate through this next month of August, and they're still somehow in playoff contention, it's on.
Yeah.
Like it is on in September. That's option number 1. Option number 2, this schedule this next month absolutely pulverizes the snot out of this team. They can't hit. The bullpen falls apart. And come, when the Reds come to town, this team is maybe at 500, below 500, out of the playoff race. At that point, Marco Luciano is going to be in the lineup every day. You're going to be seeing a lot of more Luis Matos. Maybe even Heliot Ramos makes an appearance. Kyle Harrison's probably going to start getting a little bit more run. If the Giants are not in contention come September, we're going to be seeing all the young guys taking the field. And so the way I see it, it kind of sets up a win-win situation for the Giants. On the one hand, you make a playoff run. We all love playoff runs. On the other hand, you get your future setting yourself up going into 2024, which right now is setting up to be massive step forward season for the Giants.
I'm going to look at this a little bit differently than you. First of all, I think those young guys are already getting experience, and one way or another, they are going to be up, even if the Giants are winning. I would tell you right now, I'd be shocked if Kyle Harrison is not on the major league roster. What's today, August 2nd?
Yeah.
I'm going to give it 3 weeks.
Yeah. Well,
3 weeks, I bet he's up. Luciano's going to be back. He's going to be back, and I think he's going to be back pretty soon. But I'm going to put a lot more importance, and it sounds like maybe you are, on them making the playoffs this year. And there's one reason and one reason only. Shohei Ohtani.
Mm-hmm. Oh no, I agree with you on that.
I don't think the Giants. I don't think to me, there's no silver lining to a September of Luciano Harrison, Matos, Schmidt. Let's check out the young guys and get excited about the future. I think this team has got to make the playoffs if they want to have a legitimate meeting with Shohei Ohtani.
No, I absolutely agree with you with that, and I do hope they do make that playoff run. Going into the season, my expectation was just make me feel better about this team at the end of the year than the beginning. But then I feel like they kind of outed themselves in May as a team that was good enough to make the playoffs. Yep. So it's like, oh, well, if you're going to play like a playoff team, well, now my expectations have changed. I want to see you make the playoffs. And I think it would be a disappointment if this team does not make the playoffs. And I think that would be a demerit on Farhan's record if this team does not make the playoffs. That said, yeah, I agree. You do want to make yourself look attractive for Shohei Ohtani. I liken this team to the 2018-2019 Clippers that the Warriors beat in the first round. Wow. I look at that Clippers team, and they were basically a supporting cast with, room for 2 superstars. That's basically how I look at this Giants team. This is a supporting cast that just needs a superstar to, kind of be that cherry on top. And if this group of players can make that run to the playoffs, and if they do that while keeping the pitching staff healthy, which if they do that, then it's official. Gabe Kapler and his coaching staff are mad scientists if they can keep this pitching staff afloat the entire way. But yeah, if you do that, you look like a supporting cast that just needs a superstar. Shohei Ohtani, he's looking at the supporting cast and saying, that's a supporting cast I think I might be able to join.
Well, again, it's really hard to sort of quantify what we're watching with this team. But I guess I can only define it this way. Over the last 3 years, the sum of the parts is greater than the individual. So when we look at this and go, it's a starless team, it needs a superstar. I agree, although the need for a superstar is more about fan connection and engagement, excitement, and yes, a middle of the order presence. But it's more about that than it is, wins and losses. They win more games than they lose. Mm-hmm. And the players may not have name value, but if I go deep into Lamont Wade's numbers, for example, they do sit right next to guys who do have name value. So, and I think that's the way the Giants have always looked at it. They're looking at players where they're like, just take the name off the back of the jersey. If you blindly look at OPS, especially if they've got a platoon somewhere and they're like, the OPS of these 2 players, remember in 2021, the OPS of Austin Slater plus Yaz, I think it was, that OPS equaled Mookie Betts.
Yeah.
And so that's, I know it's not an exciting way to look at it, but that's why the sum of the parts are better than the individual. So they've got, that has to keep working.
No,
whatever the formula is, it has to keep working. It has to be something that Shohei Ohtani decides is a good fit for him.
Yeah, I agree with that. The platoon, we played a game on this podcast a couple weeks ago called "If It's Stupid and It Works, It's Still Stupid." And I pointed out the platoon system. I think Yaz and Slater is a really good example of that. The way they're platooning Jock and Wilmer at DH has been working there. I do understand the kind of exasperation, just how fans are kind of fed up with the platoon system. And that's why I say, if we do kind of see more of the young guys, like you did mention, the young guys are getting their run. But if I'm going to see the young guys get their run, then that means when it's, late in the game and the Giants are down by 1 and Marco Luciano's coming up and there's a righty on the mound, I want Luciano to take that at-bat and not Jock Peterson.
But why?
Well, the reason you're going to bat Jock Peterson in that situation is because you're trying to win a baseball game. Jock is better at hitting righties than Luciano is.
Right.
The goal is to hit. But if it gets to the point where it's just like the playoffs just don't seem realistic anymore, That's what I'm saying. I want to keep status quo for now, but if it gets to
Yeah.
the point, like I said, in September, if August just kind of totally decimates the Giants and it's just we're all feeling kind of down on ourselves when the Reds come to town, at that point, I don't need to see Jock take that late at bat in a close game. Let Luciano get his run there. Let Luis Matos get more at bats against righties down the stretch, assuming the Giants aren't out of it. As long as the Giants are in the playoff hunt, realistically, then yeah, I am cool with making those moves.
Sure.
But if the playoffs aren't a realistic expectation anymore, and winning baseball games is kind of becomes secondary, then at that point, load all the rookies at the top of the lineup.
Of course.
Give them as many at-bats as possible, and don't platoon them anymore.
Of course. But we're not there. And that's why the reaction to that the other night when Luciano got benched for Jock Peterson was, and I get that the excitement in you goes down, and that's frustrating, but it's a ludicrous kind of reaction to be upset by that, because what Gabe Kapler's trying to do is win a baseball game in a playoff race. It's in many ways is the debate that everyone's been having with the 49ers. Okay. Would you want, if the 49ers, let's call them, let's say they're 10-6 and it's the final week of the season and they need to win a football game and it's the fourth quarter, right? And they're sitting there going, well, we've used Brock Purdy all year, but I know you're excited to see Trey Lance. So for this final drive to try to make the playoffs, we're going to put in Trey Lance because I know all of you want to see him. We would rip Kyle Shanahan if he did that.
That's not how it works.
You don't leave Marco Luciano in because the fans are excited to see it at bat. You make the move that gives you the best chance to win a baseball game.
No, I agree with you. And that's kind of why I prefaced it with, you basically kind of have your two outcomes we could possibly see here. Outcome one is this team goes on a run, and yeah, we do exactly what you just kind of said. Luciano's going to be pinch hit for late in games if we're trying to make the playoffs. But again, once the playoffs are off the table, then yeah, you jump into it. So with all that being said, here before we wrap up the segment, whatever you want to define as a success for this season, I guess how would you define these last 2 months here? What needs to happen for you to say 2023 was a successful season for the Giants, or maybe you're already feeling like you're there?
No, I'm definitely not there. Okay. Make the playoffs.
So playoffs is in order to be successful, it has to be a playoff season.
Absolutely, because the opportunity is there. I think that as we sit here today, the health that is necessary is about to be here. You've already indoctrinated the young guys in a way that I think is very, very helpful for the future. But I will reiterate what I just said, which is that the Giants, I know a lot of people think it's a pipe dream. I don't. Shohei Ohtani once upon a time picked the Angels. Why is it ridiculous that he would pick the Giants? We know he wants to be on the West Coast. Maybe he does not want to be one of 8 stars in the lineup with the Dodgers, or who knows what. I don't know what's going to go in those conversations. I know the Giants were finalists last time, and they didn't even have the DH to offer. So I think the Giants are not a favorite, but they are absolutely a realistic landing spot for Shohei Ohtani. And I think in order to have that realistic shot, they need to sit there in November or December and say, we're already a playoff team without you. We're already a playoff team without you. Come join us and help put us over the top. That, to me, is an absolute necessity, and that's why the urgency is now to make the playoffs.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Again, I'm still staying on that this team should make the playoffs. I do think that would be that would definitely classify this season as a success. I don't even care if you win a series in the playoffs. Just at least show that you're making progress and getting there. Because I think missing the playoffs 4 out of 5 years under Farhan, that's going to look really bad on him. That's going to be, again, another demerit on him. And again, I'm not saying that we're getting to the fire Farhan debate yet. We can get into that one in a second. But the only other way I would consider this season a success, as again, my original expectation was just to make me feel better about this team. If this team does fade and they don't make the playoffs, but maybe, remember, at the end of how last season ended, they really kind of made a run there in September and they finished 500. And some people kind of brush off that September. But no, a team that was going nowhere, playing hard the last 28 games of the season, I think that's a positive. So if the Giants are out of the playoffs, but you see them kind of make a run in September that kind of, remember we were saying that they're technically in it at the end of last season.
Right.
Sure, theoretically, mathematically, they were in it, but realistically, they weren't. If they go on a run with the young guys leading the way to where the last week of the year, they're still legally within the playoff hunt. Yeah, I might consider that a success based on kind of how they do it.
Yeah.
And again, that's one of those things we'll kind of see what happens when we get there. But there are ways, I think, for the season to be a success without a playoff appearance. It might just be a little bit harder to kind of achieve that level, that status of success.
My mind's in a different spot than yours for sure. I would.
Playoffs are still number one expectation.
I would be very, very disappointed if this is a September of let's take a look at the young guys.
Yeah. But if Luciano hits 400 in September,
well, that'd be great.
You'll be feeling a little bit better going into the long winter.
Well, but that'd be great. That'd be great on an individual basis. But I'm still looking at it from the team perspective, and they have set themselves up to be a playoff team, and so to be a success, they now need to follow through on that and finish it off.
I absolutely agree with you.